Hello you guys, what is up? Welcome back to my channel. I'm kind of going in reverse in this video. I know some of you obviously have seen my videos in the past. Most of you probably have not because my YouTube channel isn't really something I've always promoted. But I did start a new Instagram page recently, which I will link somewhere, whether it's down in the bio or somewhere up here. But I wanted to start a skin-focused Instagram, just kind of talking about my preferences, products I like, things like that, and we'll get a little into that later. I'm just gonna jump in because I always try to make my videos somewhat short and then they always end up like 40 minutes long. So I'm just gonna dive right in. This video is more about kind of me, my experience, who I am, and then kind of my stance on certain ingredients. And then we'll dive in deeper into those later. But right now I just kind of wanted to briefly touch on them. Want to say hi? Say hi, everyone. So yeah, for those of you that don't know, my name is Sandro. I've been in the cosmetic industry for about 4 years now. I started in Macy's mainly in color cosmetics, and then I went from there to Sephora, and then I was there for about 1.5 years, and there was both color and skin, and that's kind of where I found more so of my passion for skin than color. I do love color cosmetics, but I much prefer the skin realm and like exploring ingredients and different formulas and just kind of seeing how everything ties together and then seeing results. Because like makeup is great because it gives you that instant gratification that like it's something you can just like cover up and move on with your life. But I really like skincare because it gives you that, it gives you the results. Like it might take a while, but over time you start seeing those results versus just kind of masking it, and that's what I love about it. Obviously there's no like miracle cream for like everything, but I mean overall, in general, you know, like it's so like satisfying building a skincare routine for someone and then having them come back and be like, oh my god, this like changed my skin, you know? So I was at Sephora for about 1.5 years, and then from there I branched off and I worked for a few different brands. Pharmacy, Biossance, Ilia were the main brands that I worked for. My boyfriend is the Josie Maran rep, so I am very well versed with Josie Maran's products as well. And then in terms of things that I look for in skincare brands, cruelty-free is a must for me. I don't really care for brands that are not cruelty-free. And I know it's so hard with a lot of brands too because they have their parent companies that aren't cruelty-free, but then the brand itself is. So then that can get kind of tricky because ultimately you're funneling the money into the parent company. But I always try to shop cruelty-free. When I worked in Sephora and I used to get gratis, I would use things that weren't cruelty-free because like in a way I didn't really feel like I was supporting them because I wasn't purchasing, I wasn't like giving them my money. And then I also wasn't really recommending the products after using them. Like if it was like amazing, obviously like for me personally I prefer cruelty-free, but like when I'm in store, even when I was working for a brand, like all the brands that I worked for are cruelty-free, but like if they didn't want my brand, I wouldn't shy away from a brand that wasn't cruelty-free. And like if they wanted Estee Lauder or Shiseido or La Mer, like things like that, like I wasn't gonna force my beliefs on them. Like if they don't give a crap, then like okay, like that's up to them. Here's your Lancome moisturizer, have a great day. But for me personally, in my skincare routine, in my regimen, I prefer cruelty-free. I definitely have used non-cruelty-free in the past, like Origins. I love their masks, I love some other products, but I try as much as possible to lean towards cruelty-free. Now that I've said that in 97 different ways. Another thing that I like is sustainable brands. So I feel like, you know, like you can be a clean brand. I feel like there's a difference between clean and sustainable. Sustainable brands that are like carbon neutral, that use recyclable packaging, that use minimal packaging, and just care about the planet, give back to the planet, have like foundations that they work for. That's something that's also important, as well as independent brands is something I've always lean towards, because again, when you get to like the umbrella or like the parent companies, a lot of the times it's basically just like the same formula trickled down through different companies, and then it's given like that brand's signature scent or signature color, and the packaging, that's mainly what you're paying for, is like everything just kind of starts to mush together, where I feel like independent brands that have their own labs and have their own scientists get to create more like exclusive formulas. And again, a lot of people don't want that. People that are like, oh, it's like an indie brand or it's like a clean brand, that's not going to be as effective as my SK2 Essence or my Estee Lauder Advanced Night Serum. And again, like, I'm not here, I've like hesitated on this for so long because I was kind of scared, but at the same time, I'm not here to tell you what you're doing is right or wrong. Like, do whatever you want, whatever works for your skin, ultimately that's what's going to be best. My purpose with doing this is just kind of telling my journey and my experiences, and ingredients I don't like, ingredients I do like, and just things like that. I'm not gonna like roast you for your skincare, like, again, I mean, at least not publicly. Again, more so this is just for me to share my knowledge. You can do with that what you will. If you think it's a joke, then great, like, move on, have a nice day. And then if you genuinely find it interesting, then great, thanks, I'm glad I could help you out. Again, independent brands, I just feel like get to create more of their formulas, they have their own labs, and I feel like the products are more effective because it's not as watered down as the parent companies. I have some of my favorites here. Josie Maran, Biossance, Herbivore, Youth to the People, Glow Recipe, and then Acure, which is more of like a drugstore kind of brand. So yeah, tagging off of the independent brands, the clean brands, and the sustainable brands, some of my favorite brands are going to be Josie Maran, Herbivore, Biossance, Youth to the People. I do like some of Pharmacy's products, and just like a couple. Those aren't like the exclusive brands I use. I've been using Acure a lot lately, which is really nice. And again, I'm like open to diving into new products, but overall, that's like the bulk of my regimen is gonna be those like cleaner, independent brands. And I know the word, or like the term cleaner, also gets thrown around a lot. Especially I feel like with Sephora, I don't like totally agree the like clean at Sephora thing, because I feel like it partners brands that are truly clean with some that for me aren't, like brands that still use fragrances, they use a lot of silicones, they use like dyes, and their packaging isn't recyclable. Because again, for me, it's not so much just the formula, like obviously that's a big chunk of it, considering that's what's actually going on your face. But for me too, like I feel like the packaging and like the company's mission should all entail what clean means. And then for my routine, what I like doing in terms of the steps of application, I start with washing my face. I usually wash just once during the day, and then I'll do a double cleanse at night. Follow that with I usually do like a mix of toners, essences, and mists, kind of depending on what my skin needs. A lot of people confuse a toner and an essence. Toners are kind of the last step of cleansing in my eyes. They help tone the pores and help just like really get any excess debris that your cleanser didn't get off. And then essences are the first step of hydration, so really good just for deep absorption and helping to pull the other products you apply on top of it deeper into the skin. So I do usually use both. I'll go in with the toner, then do an essence, and then from there I go into my eye cream. The skin around the eye is the most like delicate, the thinnest part of the face, so I like to go in with that first, just so it has time to absorb before you go in with your serums, your moisturizers, your oils. That way it has time to fully absorb. And then after my eye creams, I'll go in with a serum, or like 5, depending on what I'm going through at the time. But then it's the serum step, then your moisturizer, and then you want to do oil last, typically because it's a larger molecule. So if you were to put it before your other steps, everything else would just kind of sit on the top and not fully absorb. I go in with oil, and then during the day I'll do the SPF as the last step, and then at night the oil is the last step, or you could do like a sleeping mask. Alright, so now I'm going to go into my stance on certain ingredients. This list will probably change, not necessarily change, but I'll probably add things as we go. This was just kind of what when I was thinking of making this video and kind of starting this Instagram. I was like, what are the main ingredients that I try to avoid or like be a little more cautious about if I do use them? And I was kind of inspired just by like surfing through YouTube. Do people still use that term? I was going through YouTube and I was just like watching some people and their skin videos, and I do agree with a lot of them, and also didn't agree with a lot of what was said. And again, that's kind of what inspired me. Is I'm not here to tell you what you're doing is right or wrong. I'm just kind of more here to tell you what I like and don't like, just kind of like everyone else. And then again, if you agree with that, that's great. Like, I want to be here to help. And then if you think what I'm saying is bullcrap, then, you know, then that's fine too. Like, I'm not, like, I won't take offense. Like, I'm not a scientist. I'm not making these products. Like, if you don't like what I have to say or what I use, then to each their own. Maybe I don't like what you're using either. Okay, so I just kind of listed them in alphabetical order as I came up with them. The first one, which is a big one, is alcohols. And there's many a different type of alcohol. Some of them are great for your skin and hair. Some of them are not great for your skin and hair. I'm a little more lenient when it comes to alcohol. My boyfriend is like very, well, I guess I should specify with denatured alcohol. But it could just say alcohol denat on the ingredient list. I could say like SD alcohol or like SD40B alcohol, something like that. And it's like specially denatured is what the SD stands for. That's the main one to avoid, like cetyl alcohol, cetyl alcohol. I never know if I'm saying those right, but it starts with a C. Those are good. They're like fatty alcohols that your skin needs. And then there's two B ones, and those can get confusing. And I feel like I'm gonna butcher those, but I think it's like benzyl alcohol is a good one, but then like behenyl alcohol. The one with an H is bad. It's a drying alcohol. And then the one without the H is a fatty alcohol. That's good. I'm off to a great start. I sound like exactly I know what I'm doing. But specifically denatured alcohol. I know it's a very like talked about ingredient. Some people totally like cut it out. Like my boyfriend about a year ago, he like went through this phase where he felt his skin was really dry, and he like went through our entire skin collection, which is a lot at the time. We were both working for skin brands, so like when you're friends with other brand reps, your collection grows really fast. So he went through everything and started like throwing anything out with denatured alcohol, even if it was things I was using. And I was like, whoa, like we're two different people. Like just because you don't like it doesn't mean I don't like it, and I'm kind of currently using it. So, but again, his main reason for avoiding it is over time it can tend to strip down the skin barrier, so then your skin won't hold in as much moisture. Again, I'm a little more lenient with it, especially in color cosmetics, like in foundations and setting sprays. It's in a lot of things. In skincare, I do try to avoid it or use a product with it lower in the ingredients list. The lower something is in the ingredient list, the less concentrated it is. And that was kind of like one of the things that I was watching. Someone said that to like people cut out denatured alcohol, but to stop doing that because it depends on what else is in it. And with that, like I do agree in a sense, as long as alcohol is the lower ingredient. Like if it's towards the bottom, I'm okay with it. But if it's like water, propylene glycol, denatured alcohol, yada yada yada, and then like argan oil or shea butter or whatever, while you are still getting those hydrating properties, if alcohol is like the second or third ingredient, that's going to be the main component that you're getting. And a lot of brands use it, especially I feel like a lot of Korean brands will use denatured alcohol as a preservative and an alternative to like parabens or phenoxyethanol, BHT, things like that. And their kind of claim is that it evaporates before it touches the skin. But again, I feel like if it's like the second or third ingredient, that's a little hard to believe for me. Like I feel like some of it will be going onto the skin. So yeah, that's kind of my stance on alcohol. While I don't completely cut it out, I do try to avoid things with it, denatured alcohol. Next is chemical sunscreens versus physical sunscreens. I do 100% prefer the physical sunscreen over chemical, and I do kind of get how they each have their pros and cons. Some people have allergies to physical. Physical is titanium and zinc, or the two that we use in the US at least. I don't know if there's others. And then chemical sunscreens have a bunch. It could be oxybenzone, it can be avobenzone, homosalate, octosalate. There's a bunch of different chemical sunscreens, and the main difference, how I would always describe it to clients when I was in store, is that like chemical sunscreen is a sunscreen, and then physical is more of a sunblock. And the way I would do that analogy is because when you use a physical sunscreen, whether it be titanium or zinc, it sits on the surface and it creates a shield, so it deflects the rays as they're coming onto the skin, so it doesn't absorb at all. Whereas with chemical sunscreens, they absorb into the skin and then absorb the UV rays and kind of diffuse them as heat. So again, kind of like there's the pros and cons to both. Some people have reactions to both, like you can have an allergy to a physical sunscreen, or you can have a reaction with a chemical sunscreen since it actually is penetrating into the skin. Chemical sunscreens are also more found circulating in the bloodstream even after you have stopped using it. I think like up to a week or so after. And people can have reactions because since it absorbs the UV rays and turns it into heat, people's skin often reacts to that. But again, like with medium to deeper complexions, a lot of time, they're definitely getting a lot better. But I know like even just a couple years ago, mineral sunscreens were really hard on like people of color. Like even for me, there was a lot I couldn't use, and I'm not that dark. So for deeper complexions, mineral sunscreens were really hard to find. With fragrances and phthalates, there are things I typically try to avoid as well. If it's a natural fragrance, and again, that's kind of like its own can of worms. Like I don't really have an issue with essential oils, but I know a lot of people do. My skin personally can tolerate them, does well with them. I've never had a reaction to any of them. I use tea tree, I use lavender. And again, I've been fine. But I know people try to avoid essential oil. If that's the case, I try to avoid fragrance in general, because with synthetic fragrance, companies can label a fragrance, and then within that one fragrance in the ingredients list, it can contain up to like 1,000 separate ingredients that they don't have to disclose due to it being like a proprietary blend of things. It can contain alcohol, it can contain phthalates, a bunch like formaldehyde, like a bunch of different things that they don't have to disclose. So if it's not a natural fragrance, I just try to avoid it in general. Like cut it out. Don't need that. Because again, a lot of fragrance is denatured alcohol too, and if I'm already trying to cut that out, if I'm using fragrance, I'm probably still getting traces of that in it as well. Parabens, I try to avoid them. I know it's like one of the most like controversial things. There's studies that say it can cause cancer and it's found in tumors. There's studies that say that it's one of the safest preservatives. So it's kind of up to you on where you stand. Just the fact that there's studies saying that even if it's like a possibility that it could be found in tumors or found in cancer cells, things like that, I'm just gonna avoid it. Like if there's safer alternatives, why not? I don't know, like phenoxyethanol is a safer preservative, but it's also not something you want to use a lot of, because if it's like, I think it's like 0.2% or under in a product, or 2%, one of those, it's safe to use. But since it's a safer alternative, like every brand and so many products have it, so you just kind of want to be cautious on it. Like if you have a 10-step skincare routine, like if it is found in everything, then it is still adding up, even if it is safe in independent quantities. Hello, kitty. Oh, I'm sorry, am I in your chair? So yeah, parabens, I try to avoid them. Don't really think they're necessary. There's other alternatives to use. That's my stance. If you feel like parabens will extend your products, again, go ahead, but it's not something I've found that I've needed in my routines, whether it's color cosmetics or skin cosmetics. PEGs, PEGs, polyethylene glycols, There are things I try to avoid. Again, kind of similar. There's studies for and against. Like, there's studies that say it doesn't penetrate into the skin. Pegs are kind of like a delivery agent, so you usually see peg and then a number. It's like 1 to 400. And that number is the size of the molecule. The pegs are kind of like carrier things, so it'll be like peg 60 hydrogenated castor oil. And what it's doing is it's linked to that castor oil and it helps to pull it into the skin, but then the peg itself like doesn't penetrate. And I just try to avoid it. Again, pegs are usually a petroleum derivative, which we're going to get into petroleums, but I don't really see the need for them. Like, because with petroleum too, I guess I'll touch on it now. Like, petroleum, it's hard to see, like, to trace it, to see how it's refined, where it's sourced, because petroleum byproducts can have chemicals in them that can be dangerous, like 1,4-dioxane. So like, just because of that, I just try to avoid it, because it could be refined, it could be like completely safe, it doesn't penetrate, great. But again, you also don't fully know where a brand is sourcing it from, so if you can avoid it, then why not? Yeah, excess petroleum, paraffin, mineral oil, it's all kind of the same thing. Again, not like, I'm not for it, but I'm not like technically totally against it. Again, like what I just said, petroleum in general can just have contamination in it because you don't really know its full trace history and how it's refined, if it's fully refined, if it still has that possibility of contamination. But besides that, it just like doesn't offer you anything. Like mineral oil, petroleum, it's in a lot of products. Like La Mer uses a lot of it, and that's what like people think, because La Mer is like in the hundreds and people are like, oh, it's like petroleum, it's fine. La Mer uses it, it's refined. And what mineral oil, petroleum, that kind of stuff does is that it creates this film to avoid evaporation of moisture in the skin, so it does like lock in moisture, but then you're also locking anything else in with it. If you have bacteria on your hands, if like your face is dirty and you put that on, you're locking all that in, so it can lead to breakouts and things like that. As well as it's not giving you any nutrients, like it creates that film to prevent evaporation, but petroleum, mineral oil, it's not giving you any benefits, it's not adding anything to your skincare routine. Whereas if you were to go with like an argan oil, chia seed oil, like squalene oil, there's so many alternatives that give you that nice like layer of protection as well as nutrients for the skin. So if you can, and people are scared of oils and they're like, oh, it's gonna make me break out, but then they're using mineral oil or petroleum, and I'm like, that's more suffocating to your skin than like using a naturally derived, I mean, I guess it's still naturally derived, but versus using an oil that's more breathable and more beneficial to your skin. This video is already 90 hours long, so I'm gonna try to wrap it up. Polyethylene. Again, it's not really found dangerous in cosmetics. Polyethylene is a plastic. It's in a lot of stuff, both in color and skincare. It's in lipsticks, it can be like in foundations, in lip balms, in moisturizers. It's in so much stuff, and like cleansing balms, like a lot of cleansing balms have it. And again, it's not necessarily harmful to your skin, like it doesn't penetrate. Polyethylene just kind of gives it that like silky, smooth texture. It's kind of like a binding agent, but I just try to avoid it because like you don't need microplastics in your skincare, and then you're washing that off and washing it down the drain. That stuff like accumulates over time. It's just something that I try to avoid. Retinol palmitate, I almost didn't put this on there because I'm not super knowledgeable about it, so I didn't want to sound stupid. But retinol palmitate, what I do know is like a vitamin A derivative. It's not really harmful if you ingest it, it's more harmful if you use it topically, because it can mutate with the sun. Like if you get a lot of sun exposure, if you're not wearing sunscreen, retinol palmitate can like mutate, cause like cancer cells if you aren't being careful. If it's in more of your nighttime products, that's more okay. Boop. But if you, it's just something I try to avoid. It's a vitamin A essentially, but I just try to avoid it. And then silicones. I feel like silicones are one of the things that I'm most lenient with. And I kind of regret saying that immediately because most of my products don't have silicones, like methicones, cyclopentasiloxane, and things like that. It is things I try to avoid. Dimethicones are the most breathable. It kind of similar to mineral oil, like it creates that film on your skin where it can trap bad things in, but it's more breathable. Like it's usually, dimethicone is usually derived from sand. I use a moisturizer from Biossance, the probiotic gel moisturizer. I love that moisturizer, it's one of my favorites. And dimethicone is like the 4th or 5th ingredient, and that's why I'm always like, yeah, don't use silicones, but here's this moisturizer that I use and love. I know that theirs is derived, it's a plant-based versus a sand-based dimethicone. So I do prefer that. And again, it's not like the worst thing. I feel like it's really hard to avoid in color, like in so many foundations, primers. Like primers are mainly silicones, just because it gives you that nice blurring, smoothing, softening effect. It gives you that like porcelain skin appearance, poreless. So like in color, I'm not super against it. Again, it's really hard to avoid, but in skin, I do try to avoid it as much as possible, unless I know like how it's. I know Biossance isn't the only one that has like a plant-based dimethicone, so things like that. If you know where it's being sourced or how it's being made, then I'm a little more lenient towards it being okay. The reason that it's in that moisturizer is because it's a probiotic moisturizer, and the dimethicone kind of grounds it or like hones it in, so the probiotics like don't go crazy in the jar, or like react on your skin. So the dimethicone is just kind of like the like neutralizing agent, if you will. And lastly is sulfates. Well, lastly for now, because again, this list will probably expand over time. Sulfates, avoid them. You don't need them. They're like SLS, sodium lauryl sulfate, sodium laureth sulfate. It's what gives cleansers that nice, like foamy, luxurious feeling, but it can strip your skin. It's in laundry detergent, it's in like house cleaning supplies and dish soap. It's what gives you that sud. And I know a lot of people like that, but again, I feel like recently over time, things have gotten so much better that you don't need SLS to get that nice sudsy wash. All the cleansers I use, I kind of cycle through a lot. I have the Biossance Tea Tree. I have the Acure Seriously Soothing Cream Cleanser. I have the Milk Makeup Vegan Milk Cleanser. They're all in the shower, so I just kind of like alternate them. The Josie Maran Pineapple Enzyme Cleanser. Just kind of depending on how my skin's feeling, what I want. I kind of cycle through all of those, and I can use all of them to shave. Not that I grow a lot of facial hair in the first place, but they all give me that like sudsy, luxurious, foamy feeling without the use of sulfates. Alright guys, so I know this has been a long video, even though I didn't want it to be, but there was a lot to cover. So thank you guys for watching. I will try to maintain, I don't know if my YouTube, like let's be honest, I say this every time I film and then my YouTube flops. More so because I don't do anything to it than people not watching it. I mean both, but because I don't do anything. So I don't know if I'll be super active on here. I will try to be making more videos, but I'm mainly going to be focusing on my Skinstagram, which is just Skin by Sandro with a V instead of an A. It'll be linked somewhere. I'll probably make like IGTV videos on there and things like that. But yeah, I just kind of wanted, again, I'm kind of taking a step back because I do currently, like you can go on my channel and like view previous videos, but I just kind of want to take a step back, reintroduce myself, my stance on things, and kind of my history and where my knowledge and expertise comes from. So again, I'm always learning, like just like everyone else. I love researching ingredients and different brands and products and just kind of like labs and different things. Like you can never stop learning. And again, by making this channel, I'm not saying like, oh yeah, like I'm the expert, what I say is right and whatever else you're doing is wrong. It's more so just saying, this is my take on things, this is how I view things. Let's learn together, let's grow together, and let's figure out products together. So if that's something that interests you guys, you can follow my Instagram, you can subscribe to my YouTube channel, and I will be seeing you guys more. Thank you so much for watching. If you guys have any questions, feel free to DM me at my Instagram or comment on this video, and I'll be looking forward to chatting with you guys. But yeah, besides that, thanks for watching. I'll see you soon, and have a great day. Bye.